I made it. I'm alive. I survived. I survived the first of the major holidays. How are you, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me. Let me open up something to drink here. I'm glad that you could all join me. Hello to everybody in the live chat. Happy belated Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate it, and happy holidays in general to everybody. I'm glad you could join me. As usual, I will be answering patron questions to start with. So if you're with me in the live chat and you have a question or something you want me to talk about or whatever, just hang on to it until we get through the patron questions, and then I will spend the rest of the show hanging out with everybody in the live chat. And if you have a question or you were planning on being generous and putting in a super chat or something like that, I won't see that until I can actually pay attention to the live chat. So I'll be focusing on the patron questions first. So here we go. First patron question is from Tom McDonald. Hi, Tom. I took off. There we go. See, I turned off my transitions, so it doesn't. There we go. See, now it'll be nice and smooth there. See, that's how it should be. I don't like these harsh cuts on a live stream. It should fade, like a news broadcast, because that's what this is comparable to. Anyway, first question from Tom McDonald. My friend the witch doctor, he told me what to say, but I've forgotten it. Do you remember what he told me to say? Oh, it's like, what was the there was that movie, that Sean Connery movie from the 90s called Medicine Man, right? Where he played a doctor who, he's a doctor who discovered the cure for cancer. And then he forgot what the cure for cancer was. And in the trailer, you have Sean Connery, and he's like, I discovered the cure for the plague of the 20th century, and I lost it. So that's what Tom did. Tom had the advice that his friend the witch doctor gave him, and now he lost it, and he expects me to tell him. I think it was something like, what was it? Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bang, which is probably almost certainly grossly offensive. Like, it's one of those songs that we think of it as like, oh, it's just a novelty song from the 60s. But you think about it, Witch Doctor has some maybe not so nice connotations in terms of racism or quote unquote primitive people or primitive cultures, and then what does the witch doctor say? Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ah ting tang walla walla bing bang. Seems like kind of a colonialist, condescending, dismissive attitude toward people. But that, regardless of how you feel about it, I believe that is what your friend the witch doctor said. And boy, I just had to SJW that all up, didn't I? I had to take my friend and patron asking me a cute question about an old novelty song, and I had to shame him. You're welcome, Tom. You're welcome. It's okay. It's okay. I'm a shitty person too. I just try not to let on. Next question is from General Contact Unit Problem Child. The other day, you and most of the people in the chat told me you don't really think it's okay to have conservative friends. Does that mean you shouldn't try to talk to them at all? Every now and again, a conservative person will turn up in your comments and complain about the progressive content in your Star Trek videos. If you respond to these people, you invariably tell them that you have contempt for their views and don't care whether they like your videos. It sometimes annoys me when you do that, because I worry you might be driving away people who could possibly be brought over to our side. Do you think it's naive of me to think that's possible? I remember Eli Bosnick once described your approach as rallying the troops, i.e. focusing on activating progressives rather than trying to the other side. In the last few years, I've heard a lot of left-leaning people say that it makes more sense to write off Trump supporters and basically do that. I get the logic, but that approach just seems super cynical to me. I mean, social progress will always be held back to some degree if we just take it for granted that a third of the population can't ever be reached. Well, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it as instead of saying, well, basically, if you have 2/3 of the population, if there's a third of the population that just can't be reached, but you still have 2/3, focus on the 2/3, right? And that's my whole, That's my whole, because if you get people in that 2/3, if that is how it is, let's just say it's how you say a third of the people just are a complete loss, and 2/3 of the people either will or could potentially be on your side and help you. Imagine how much progress we could make, how much more progress we could make, how much faster we could make that progress if we got more of those 2/3 to pull along with us, right? People who maybe aren't activists or aren't as aware or informed about certain things, but would be sympathetic, would be on our side, would be willing to help, even if it was just voting for a particular candidate or donating to a particular cause or just some small little thing that somebody could do. Imagine if we got as many of those 2/3 of the population to contribute in some way as we possibly could, how much we could accomplish. And that's where my head is at. As far as that. I have never said and will never say that it's impossible or just by definition a total waste of time to attempt to reach someone on the other side of the aisle, as it were. I know there are people over there who can be reached, who can be persuaded, but what I say in reference to my work is A, I'm not interested in doing that. And B, I don't think I'm good at that. Like, I don't think that's where my skill set lies. And I don't think my energies are best spent trying to reach out and turn people who are on the right-wing side, the conservative side, however you want to characterize it. I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't think that's where my talents are. I don't think that's where my interest is. That's not my deal. If that's your deal or someone else's deal and they think they can accomplish something by creating a space for conservatives in their audience, or reaching out to conservatives, or pitching their message in a way that it will be progressive but also be palatable to, more power to you. Good luck. I hope you do turn some people. I hope you do change people's minds. That's fantastic. But me personally, I think I can accomplish a lot more. And I think we in general can accomplish a lot more if we work on the people who are already sympathetic to us, and we just say, look, this is important. We need your help on this, as opposed to reaching out to someone who is opposed to you and thinks of you as an enemy, thinks of you as a villain, and trying to convince them, oh, actually, we're not the bad guys. We're the good guys. It's possible. It's been done. It happens. If you have a talent for that or a knack for that, or you feel called to do that, then more power to you. But personally, I think it's a waste of time. And I just don't want conservatives and right-wingers in my audience. I don't make content that I think appeals to them or that I want to appeal to them. I'm not really interested in debating politics with them, especially when it comes to things like human rights. I'm just not here to fight with right-wingers over whether or not trans people and gay people and immigrants and people with disabilities and any other marginalized group, whether or not they deserve to be treated equally and fairly. I'm not going to argue about that. That's a waste of my time. And it belittles the subject. The idea of human rights, the fact that I'm going to argue with some random neo-Nazi asshole on the internet about whether or not trans women are really women, or whatever the fuck they want to argue about. Like, that's beneath the dignity of the subject. To hold it up as a topic for discussion. So I'm not going to do that. And especially if you're going to piss and moan about politics, and especially progressive or left-wing or left-leaning politics in a video talking about Star Trek, then you're not only against me politically, but you've completely missed the point of fucking Star Trek, and you've decided to complain to me about it. So that pisses me off at you on a whole separate level. And I just want you to get the fuck away from me. So I appreciate your feeling, and I'm not saying that like it's always a waste of time to try and reach people on the other side, but it's just not what I'm about. So yeah, I have no plans to try to be more conciliatory toward conservatives with my content in the future. Next question is from Villa Lade. In the recent Trek Actually on Evolution, you did not handle Voyager's episode Distant Origin. As an allegorical story, it has some merit, but unfortunately, the idea of extrapolating evolutionary development from early forms makes me cringe every time. Did you discount the episode or forget it? I was surprised that you missed a terrific opportunity to badmouth Voyager. Oh, my contempt for Voyager has been greatly overstated, at times by myself, to be fair. I do rarely miss an opportunity to give Voyager a good old punch in the gut. The reason I left out Distant Origin was, well, first of all, the video as it stands was... It was over 40 minutes long. It wasn't like 40, 50 minutes. I mean, it was quite long. It was over half an hour long. So I thought it was long enough as it was. And that's, when I'm in the scripting stage, I mean, did I really want to add more content talking about Distant Origin when I could cover a lot of the same points in terms of how Star Trek treats evolution by talking about Genesis and talking about Threshold? And with Threshold, I can also get my kicks in on Voyager too. So it just seemed redundant to talk about Distant Origin. But you're right. I mean, the way evolution is portrayed in that episode is problematic, and the way evolution is portrayed throughout Star Trek is often very problematic, as I talked about in the video. But no, it was just a timing issue. It was just I knew very early on when I came up with the concept for that episode, I knew that I wanted to do a Richard Dawkins spoof. And I knew that I wanted the episodes that I focused on for the main parts of the video to be Genesis from TNG and Threshold from Voyager. I knew that's what the video was going to be. And yeah, I could have talked about Distant Origin, but I felt like the video was long enough and I was able to get to the points I wanted to get to with those two episodes and without it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not, and I think as an episode, it's actually not terrible, at least what I remember of it. I've only watched it maybe twice. And the last time was quite a while ago, but I remember it not being an absolutely terrible episode. But I was able to get my point across with the episodes that I did talk about in my video. Yeah, and I didn't need an extra episode summary making the video too long when I had a self-indulgent Richard Dawkins parody making the episode too long already. Next question is from Dr. Babylon. A few months ago, I shared with you my idea for a version of the DC universe where the hero mantle is generational because characters age in real time unless they have decelerated aging, immortality is part of their superpowers, and resurrection is impossible. Since then, I've been expanding that universe. One character who is explicitly immortal in the comics is Vandal Savage, a Homo sapien born 50,000 years ago. One day, when he was 45 years old, a mysterious meteor crashed to Earth, bathing him in radiation, making him immortal and enhancing his intelligence. Vandal Savage was the original metahuman, and arguably Earth's first supervillain. Vandal Savage has also always been portrayed as white. The problem with that last part is that 50,000 years ago, the light-skin phenotype didn't exist in Homo sapiens. Even if Vandal Savage had been born in Europe, which is unlikely but possible, he would have been black. The light-skin phenotype developed in European modern humans only as recently as 8,000 years ago. The truth about the origins of white skin is inconvenient and upsetting to many racists, but in this case, it's also inconvenient for me. If I don't want to deal with the awkwardness of having a black character whose last name is Savage, I've only got a few options. 1, keep Savage white, but change his species from Homo sapien to Neanderthal. 2, make him dark-skinned, but change his name to something else. Or 3, rewrite his backstory to make him a lot younger. What would you advise? Well, of those 3 options, and since those are the 3 options you present me, I assume that you would rather not just sort of ignore it, and just say, well, okay, he's 50,000 years old, but he's white because that's just the way the character is portrayed, and it doesn't really work out historically. But whatever, it's a comic book, right? If that's not something that if that's not an option, then I think the best option is to make him a Neanderthal, and I think that's actually, I mean, there's potential there for that to be really interesting. To have him be a Neanderthal, to be a Neanderthal who survived into the modern age. So he's not just this impossibly old guy. He's not just this evil immortal dude. He's also the last surviving member of this extinct species. that is probably very like we modern humans, but also different from us in important ways too. So I think it adds an interesting twist to his character, especially if that's something that you keep in your back pocket and you don't reveal that until later into the story. And nobody was foolish enough to watch this live stream and have it spoiled for them. But yeah, I think the Neanderthal thing is probably the best option of those three options. Yeah. Because I don't think I wouldn't want to change his name, because, I mean, you want to do that character. I agree that having the character be black and having him be the world's first supervillain and have the name Savage is something that you would want to avoid if possible. There are some things about that that are just best not done, right? But you want to do that character. You want to do Vandal Savage. You don't want to do some other person with Vandal Savage's origin, but with a different name. And I think having him be incredibly old, like 50,000 years old, is part of the character. I mean, if you had him be 5,000 years old instead of 50,000 years old, it might make the racial stuff work out better. But then you would also be substantially changing the character, and he would be super old, but he wouldn't be like impossibly ancient, which I think is part of what makes the character compelling. So I would say, personally, the best option is to make him a Neanderthal. Just my 2 cents, which you asked for. So there you go. Next question is from Ohoyerno. I've gotten into a few debates recently about King Solomon and how he was so wise for wanting to split an innocent baby. My issue is that Solomon's gambit would only work if he was already widely known to be a cruel king. A king who's known to kill babies for sport. A wise and good king wouldn't do it. I'm actually imagining it as Donald Trump. Split the baby, give each woman half a child. I then imagine you saying the exact same thing. The Solomon Gambit would work if Trump did it. He has a history of locking kids in cages and forcing them to drink from toilets. You don't. I'd call your bluff, but I'd fear Trump to do exactly what he said. What is your opinion of King Solomon? Is he wise? Is he good? Am I overthinking this? Well, yeah, I think you're overthinking it, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think overthinking old myths and legends and modern stories as well, like that, can be a fun exercise. I think you're right. If we assume that if we treat the King Solomon story as though it is something that actually happened, and we have to hold it up against the how we know reality works, and how we know, or at least how we expect human nature to be in given situations, then I think you're completely right. Yeah, if King Solomon was known as a wise and good king, then him saying, I got it, cut the baby in half, would seem completely out of left field, and it's difficult to imagine real people in that real situation taking him seriously and thinking, well, no, I'm sorry, King Solomon. We both know you're not going to cut the baby in half, right? You're too smart and you're too good for that. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really work when judged on that level. But of course, that's not the point that we are meant to take from that story. The moral of the King Solomon story, as I read it, is not about the wisdom and the actions of the king in the sense of, oh, he knew exactly how to solve the problem. The message is the parent who was willing to give up the child, but allow the child to live and be safe, is the one that was judged deserving of it. Like, that's the point of that story. The point of that story isn't King Solomon, what a genius, The point of the story is the parent who was willing to give up their custody of the child in order that the child would be safe, rather than destroy the child to get their fair piece of it, is the one that demonstrated that they loved it the most and that they actually deserved to have the child and could be trusted to take care of the child. That's the point of that story. And that's why King Solomon proposes, well, let's just cut the baby in half so you can each have some. And that's why it's taken seriously, even though he is the good, wise king. Like, it doesn't make sense according to the rules of reality and human nature, but it makes sense according to the thing that the author of that story wanted to accomplish, wanted to leave the audience with. And that's a balance that I think every writer has to strike. You have to decide which master, so to speak, you want to serve. and to how much of an extent you want to serve them. Do you want your story to obey the rules of reality as closely as possible, or do you want your story to deliver a message or have a larger point or illustrate a particular theme? And in order to do that, you have to kind of fudge those rules of reality a little bit in order to get where you need to go with the story. That's something that I think every writer has to, calculate for themselves. But to me, when I read that story, that's the point of the story. So the fact that the actions of the characters aren't very realistic doesn't bother me, But at the same time, as I said, pointing that out and reading the story from that perspective can be a lot of fun. It's just, I don't think that's the point of the story. Next question is from Isaiah Taylor. Hey, Steve, what are your opinions on cultural nostalgia? I had just watched Titanic, and during the engine scene, I wish I was an engineer who worked inside the ship tending to mechanical needs. I know as a person of color, I would have been an outcast in Victorian England, but something about those polished fine china, the elegance of the grand staircase, and the proper upper lips always getting to my more mellow and quiet self. Just kidding. I'm a hardworking tough guy who hates the man and makes my own rules, but every now and then I have my posh and neuter movements. Furthermore, I'm a 90s kid, born in 92, and I'm going through 90s pangs right now. I've been getting into alternative rock and indie from the late 90s, thanks to movies like Clueless and Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion and Blast from the Past. And I sometimes daydream about being in Venice Beach, rollerblading to the sound of Smash Mouth's All-Star playing at music stands as I whiz through the cool, sunny California air. My date, Ardra, is by my side in a crop top and short shorts. Yes, I had to make a Star Trek TNG and Voyager reference there. I love the holodeck in Star Trek and hope it and faster than light travel are the things that get invented in my lifetime. Steve, what are your thoughts? Oh, sure, I can relate to that a lot. I'm older than you. I was born in 1980, but I have a powerful nostalgia for the 1990s as well. I remember that music. I remember those movies. I remember the TV shows. I remember the culture. And looking back on it now as an adult, because I was a teenager. I was a child and a teenager in the 90s. That was like my coming of age decade. I graduated high school in 98. So I was a young adult for like the very, very tail end of it. But looking back on it now, as a person in his late 30s with hopefully some more wisdom and some more social consciousness, I can look back at things about the 90s and think, oh, that wasn't so good. Though there were problems with it, there are things that maybe I wasn't aware of at the time that now I think, maybe it wasn't such a great time. And of course, if I had been, an LGBTQ person or a person of color or a member of some other marginalized group that did not have that was not as close then as they are now to having equal rights, even though there's still obviously a lot of distance to travel now. I might not be as nostalgic for it, but one of my great teachers in high school said that nostalgia is remembering things the way they never really were. And as long as we are aware that that's what it is, I don't have a problem with nostalgia as long as it is kept in its box. Like, I don't see a problem with having wistful thoughts about your youth. I don't have a problem with romanticizing your childhood or looking back fondly on your younger years, as long as you don't allow that to stop you from doing what you need to do today, or allow it to blind you to the problems that existed back then and probably still exist in one form or another today and still need to be addressed. As long as you know that that's what nostalgia is, that it's a liar in many ways, or at least it gives you false information or incomplete information. It allows you to paint an inaccurate picture. It's okay to enjoy that picture as long as you recognize it for what it is, and you're still able to come back to the present and do what you need to do and do what other people need you to do. So I don't have a big problem with nostalgia. I think something like the holodeck and using the holodeck to recreate the 1990s as I remember them would be wonderful, would be amazing, as long as I was still able to leave the holodeck and get on with my real life when the time came to do that as well. But yeah, come on, I'm a huge nostalgic for the 90s, please. I'm right there with you, my friend. I'm right there with you. Next question is from John Burnsy. Hi, Steve. Volunteerism. Democratically communist. Organizing volunteers, a way of allowing for everyone to share in the success of a non-cash economy. By this I mean when volunteers are not interested in money, knowing they are part of more than a group of helpers is something that can be shared. Would a volunteer coordinator who had connections in a community be something that would be a positive position, even if having such a thing might bring comments of communist from the peanut gallery? Does this democratic collective volunteer system intrigue you in any way? Because when those who are younger are asked to help, they're like, but I was going to go into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. But if you change it in this way and you are able to keep everyone energized, something like this could be promoted also as a way of getting work experience for those younger workers. What do you think? Am I misunderstanding the terms? Democratic, collective, communistic, voluntary? Well, your question reminds me of something that I was talking about with someone at Thanksgiving dinner yesterday. I was talking with a relative of my wife, and he has we were talking about his dog, and he has a dog that is I think he said it's a chow poodle mix, right? And he was laughing because he said now it's called a choodle. But he said, back when I was a kid, we called that a mutt. Like there were pure breeds and there were mutts, and a mix between a chow and a poodle was called a mutt. Now it's called a designer breed. It's the exact same thing. It's just that you can trace the lineage now. You can divine what the breeds being mixed are, and it has an appealing name. It's not a mutt. Who wants a mutt? Actually, a lot of people would like a mutt. I would love a dog just as much if it was a mutt as if it was anything else. But that being said, a lot of people have a negative view of the term mutt. But if you say designer breed, if you have a cute name for it, if it's not a mutt, if it's a choodle or a labradoodle or whatever, then all of a sudden hey, really? That sounds pretty cool. Very fashionable all of a sudden. So a lot of it is just, and it's for better or worse, it shouldn't be this way. And things would be a lot different and a lot better if it weren't this way in many ways. But a lot of it is just marketing. A lot of it is selling things to people, is convincing people that this is something they want. And because thanks to decades of propaganda and some fairly high-profile failed states that adopted versions of it, for many people here in the United States, the term communism has been tainted. Not entirely fairly, but that term communism has been tainted. Socialism has been tainted, even though in certain ways our society is a lot more socialist than most people would want to admit. So if you can rebrand it, if you can take something that is community-based, that is based on people working together for the common good, and instead of calling it a tainted term that will raise people's suspicions, and they'll go, oh, no, I don't want to do that. That's bad. If you brand it as, well, it's volunteerism and it's work experience and it's everybody coming together for the common good, and it's what's good for you is good for everybody, and what's good for everybody is good for you. And you can sell it in a way that makes it seem fresh and new and non-threatening, then I think a lot of people will go for it. It's a similar phenomenon to several years ago, probably 10 years ago now. I'm so old. When they were pushing to pass the Affordable Care Act, and they were taking opinion polls, and there was a certain percentage of people, a fairly large percentage of people in most of these polls, where if you said, do you support Obamacare, they would say, no, I'm totally against Obamacare. Or even if they said, if you didn't say Obamacare, if they said like government-run healthcare, they would throw all these right-wing scare words into it. Like, are you supporting government-run healthcare? Like, people would say, no, absolutely not. But then when they were asked about individual provisions of Obamacare, without having those provisions explicitly tied to the Affordable Care Act, a lot more of those same people supported it. So when they said, do you like Obamacare? They'd say, oh, no, of course not. Fuck Obamacare. But if they said, are you in favor of people being able to get insurance even if they have pre-existing conditions? And they would say, oh, yes, that's only fair. And if you said, are you in favor of parents being able to keep their children on their health insurance for longer? Oh, yes, absolutely. That seems fair. Are you in favor of women having birth control covered as part of their healthcare insurance? Oh, yes, that seems only right. Like when you mental health parity, are you in favor of mental health care being treated the same as physical health? Oh, yes, absolutely. That's when you point out individual parts of it. People are like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But when you lump them all together and you give it the scary name, that's when they turn against it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what that question reminds me of. And I think, yeah, if you can take something that has been sort of unfairly branded as a bad thing and tweak it a little bit and rebrand it, yeah, I think a lot more people would be interested in it or amenable to it. There would still be people who see through it and say it's communism, but I think a lot more people would be open to it. And again, it's a shame that it has to be that way. It's a shame that humans are so superficial and fickle and easily led, but that's the way it is for the time being. So I think that might actually get somewhere if you could pull that off. Here's one from David Colby. After a middling stint in Starfleet Academy and a posting to the USS Ticonderoga, you, Lieutenant J.G. Steve Shives, climb up the ranks through astrogation to tactical to finally the command track. After years of hard work and study and the remarkable rescue of 12 civilian colonists from pirate raiders in the Capellan system, Lieutenant Shives is promoted to Lieutenant Commander and given their choice in posting to one of 3 ships. However, during the night before your choice, you are visited in your dreams by a Q who reveals your future choices and their fates. Which do you choose? 1. The USS California, an aging Excelsior-class ship earmarked for colonization efforts. The majority of the saucer section has been refitted to billet and transport personnel to their new worlds. Your mission will be to take 20,000 colonists to their new home, but halfway there, an encounter with an unknown entity called the Harrower shall send you and the California whipping through space and to the distant Andromeda galaxy. A route home may exist, but the strange races of Andromeda and growing tension and supply issues on your ship render your fate uncertain. Number 2, the USS Mongoose, a recently refurbished Nova class designed to carry a complement of support craft, primarily a variant on the Federation starfighter. The premise is to use the force multiplication of the fighters to make the Mongoose punch above its weight in tactical engagements needed when sent to patrol the crime-riddled Orion sector. But, as the dream reveals, your first officer is secretly a part of Section 31. Are the Mongoose's orders going to be entirely on the level? Number 3, the USS Bellerophon, a recently constructed Nebula-class ship. The Bellerophon has a reasonably efficient, if dull, crew and will be charting and examining unusual stellar bodies in the 31 Scorpii system. But the dream reveals the terrifying twist lurking here. Absolutely nothing of note will happen. You will spend years of your life in a dead-end assignment and only attain promotion after half a decade and then be shuffled into an equally tedious assignment until old age forces your retirement, a distressing end for a promising officer. Well, I gotta say, for me, this is a fairly easy choice, and it's number 2, the USS Mongoose. And I'll give you the key phrase that... Well, there are two details of the USS Mongoose pitch that hook me and make me think as cool as it would be to go to the Andromeda galaxy and to basically do like Star Trek Voyager, only more so and hopefully better. The Mongoose assignment, because first of all, it's a Nova class ship, and I love the Nova class design. Nova class was the Equinox, I think, in that episode of Voyager, the Equinox. It's a smaller ship. It's like a science vessel, and I love my dream Star Trek show would take place on a small ship, not a ship with hundreds of crew members, but a ship with a small crew. Like ideally, it would be like the crew would just be the main characters on the show, but I could deal with like a crew of maybe 30, 40, 50 people, but not like a massive ship, right? A smaller ship. And I love the look of the Nova class. So that got me. And patrolling the Orion sector. God, that sounds like a fun. It sounds like a fun assignment if I'm a real person in the Star Trek universe. And it sounds like a great Star Trek series. I would love a show about a small Federation starship assigned to patrol the Orion sector and encountering all of these galactic pirates and criminals and smugglers and ne'er-do-wells. Like, that just sounds like such a great show. So number 2, I'm saying I would want to be posted to the USS Mongoose. I would want to serve my time as lieutenant commander and hopefully get promoted pretty quickly so that I could someday be the captain of that ship on that assignment, because I would love that. And the detail about the first officer secretly being part of Section 31, that's icing on the cake. That sounds like great. I love all of that. I love all of that. I would live that life and I would do that show. So the USS Mongoose is definitely the choice that I'm going with. Next question is from John Gingras. Hi, Steve. What's your favorite kind of pie? Or if that's too difficult, top 3 favorite pies? It's not, I'll give you a top 3, but I think my favorite pie is probably like a blackberry pie. I love berry pies. I love like blackberry pie or like a mixed berry pie. Blueberry pie is good, but I prefer like a raspberry or a blackberry or something like that. But I'll take a blueberry pie too. But I love a good berry pie. And like a scoop of vanilla ice cream on the side. Oh man, a hot slice of berry pie and a scoop of vanilla ice cream. That's just like the perfect dessert for me. So that would be number 1. Number 2, probably a good lemon meringue pie. I love a good lemon meringue pie. And number 3, I would go with just a classic apple pie. So there you go. That's my top 3: a berry pie, a lemon meringue pie, and an apple pie. God, I mean, I had a piece of pumpkin pie today left over from Thanksgiving, but pumpkin pie would not crack the top 3 for me. Next question is from Jin Hai. Steve Shives, what is best in life? Well, you know the answer to that, my friend. What is best in life? To crush your enemies? To see them driven before you? And to have a nice hot slice of berry pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on the side. That is what is best in life. Next question, thank you for the question, by the way. Next question is from Nathaniel Robinson. Hi, Steve. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Have you been following the hysteria over Kappa? I doubt you'll be affected by it, even though my son watched your videos before he turned 13, even the stuff that appeals to him as a non-believer. There seems to be a strange fallout from the hubbub. I've seen a lot of YouTube creators post videos in which they vehemently deny, sometimes literally screaming with profanity, that what they do is not for children. These are things that not only I did as a kid, but my son has done for several years. Model building, model rocketry, board games, video games, collectible toys, etc. These are things that are certainly outgrowths of children's culture. However, I noticed that in many of these areas, my son is one of the few kids I see. When I went to our local hobby store recently, I noticed that my son was the only minor of the dozen or so customers in the store. Moreover, my son didn't think that any of his friends had any hobbies, save 2 who played Dungeons and Dragons. His friends are conversely envious of some of the things he does. I'm sure that many would respond that it is kids these days who are too lazy, but clearly it's the adults who control the money and the time and the family car determining what kids do. Given what I've seen in reaction to Kappa, this seems more like a co-opting of children's culture. Indeed, I fear that in overreacting to Kappa, people will more aggressively make various hobbies and diversions uninviting to kids. Thoughts? That is an aspect of it that I had not considered before I saw your question. And I guess the main reason for that is I don't have children of my own, and I'm not, I'm not close to any children. I'm not like an uncle or a mentor or whatever to any young children. So I don't really have any insight or any instinct to think about, what about the children? But yeah, that's a good point. It may encourage adults to take over child-friendly spaces even more than we already have, and that would be a shame, because look, there's nothing wrong with an adult liking something that has been labeled as something for kids, right? There's nothing wrong with a grown-up playing a role-playing game or collecting toys or, playing board games or watching cartoons or reading comic books. I mean, these are things that have traditionally been slotted as kids' things, but don't necessarily have to be. Like, there's nothing inherent about animation, for instance, or superheroes or toys or whatever that makes them a kids only thing. Like, there's no reason why adults shouldn't be able to enjoy those. It's just that culturally we've kind of drawn that distinction. But in enjoying those things, I do think that there still needs to be space kept for kids, because those are things that, toys meant a great deal to me as a kid. Comic books meant a great deal to me as a kid. Cartoons meant a great deal to me as a kid. And I was fortunate enough that when I was growing up, I did not feel crowded out of those spaces by adults. And I wonder if kids today have the experience that you describe your son having, where, he goes to the models to the model store, to the hobby store, or whatever, and he's the only kid there. The rest of it is adults. And there's nothing wrong with adults being into models or being into various, quote unquote kids hobbies. But it would be a shame if kids were crowded out, or if kids were not encouraged to pursue hobbies or activities that they might enjoy, because we have turned the culture back too far the other way. So now they aren't considered kids' hobbies anymore. Now they are considered adult things, and kids just aren't guided towards them. Like, that would be a shame. I didn't think about that as a potential side effect of COPPA, but maybe it will be. I hope not. I hope not. That's something that I kind of had to come to terms with myself, because I love comic book superheroes. I love Batman, and of course, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, that's when Batman was first going through, well, not first, it started in the 70s, but it really kicked into high gear with like Dark Knight Returns and the Tim Burton Batman movie, and continued into the 90s, where Batman was going through his grown-up phase. Batman was going through his adult, gritty, complex, psychologically damaged, deconstructed, grown-up character phase. He's not just for kids anymore. He's not the goofy cartoon character or the Adam West guy. He's Batman, and he's dark, and he's serious, right? And that's the Batman I grew up with, and that's the Batman I came to love, and that's still the Batman that I love to a large extent, and even now at age 39, right? I love grim, serious 1990s Batman. But I had to get past that sense of, this is the way Batman is supposed to be, and it's okay that this Batman isn't appropriate for kids or isn't being pitched at kids, because you know what? Batman's an adult character, and kids don't need to enjoy Batman, right? I had that mindset for quite a while, and I had to get over that, because I came to realize as I matured that, well, first of all, when I was a kid, I got into Batman. I was not an adult. I was a child when I first got into Batman. And even though I came to love grim, gritty, grown-up Batman in the 90s, the Batman that got me interested in the first place was Super Friends Batman, was Adam West, goofy, campy Batman, right? It was a kid-friendly version. And if that version of Batman never existed, then I never would have become a fan in the first place, to later grow up and become a know-it-all smart-ass teenager who renounced that version and started to love the grim, gritty, grimdark version, right? So I feel like that's important. It's completely fine to take things that are that are for kids and allow adults to reclaim them and to make them their own. It's perfectly fine to do an R-rated movie about Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or whatever. If it's a good movie, I'll see it and I'll probably really like it. It all depends on the story. But there should also be something of that character that is available for kids, because that's how I got into it. That's how most of us who love Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or whoever got into it. We weren't reading Frank Miller and Alan Moore comics when we were 5 and 6 years old. Maybe some of us were, but most of us weren't. Most of us were watching Super Friends or watching Batman the Animated Series, depending on what age you are. and we got into it that way. Or we were reading Batman Adventures, instead of Batman Shadow of the Bat, right? And it's important that that exists. The things that are for kids should still be for kids. You can make versions of it that are for adults too. That's completely fine. But it should always be for kids. There should be an availability of it that children can relate to and can access and can decide whether or not they like it. Because I think that's really important for things that have become big, like shared cultural franchises. And it would be a shame if that kind of thing started to go away. Next question is from some random geek. Steve Shives, if you were told there will be a YouTube walkout, would you join it? The Spanish YouTuber Cunado de Izquierdas, Cunado de Izquierdas, is starting a movement of YouTube walkout in response to the new terms of service, which includes a clause allowing them to terminate your access or your Google account's access to all or part of the service if YouTube believes in its sole discretion that provision of the service to you is no longer commercially viable. Many of us are reading this as YouTube, you are not making money for us, so we will nuke your channel. This is potentially scary, especially channels have been nuked for almost no reason. Theory Pleb's old channel is gone. Hashtag free the plebe. The walkout is basically video makers and users walking away from YouTube. YouTubers will provide all of their videos, will private all of their videos, except maybe one making a statement of, I am joining the YouTube walkout. Video makers and users don't go on YouTube from December 10th to the 13th, at the beginning of the new terms of service goes into effect. Users will just go to Twitch, watch Netflix, or just go outside if they're able to. Content creators could use other platforms like Twitch and Dailymotion or be on social media. There is a petition for the YouTube walkout that Chrisiosity wrote up here, and there's the link. And the link to that, by the way, for anybody watching, is in the description of this video as well. I was thinking ahead far enough this time to actually put it in. Do you think we can make a noticeable impact with the YouTube walkout, Steve? There is also the idea of doing a new YouTube walkout every 6 months. We've got to do something to break off the power that YouTube has. All of it, as is by design under capitalism. All of the power in the hands of the very, very few. Still said, more people are not critical of this global system of... Still sad, more people are not critical of this global system of power. Thoughts, impressions, suggestions, advice? Will you join the picket line, Comrade Steve? I mean, in principle, I would join it, of course. But the problem is that I make my living on YouTube. My livelihood is on YouTube. And while I am doing okay, and I mean, obviously, I just crossed 100,000 subscribers recently, and I mean, my income has been stable and trending upward recently. I'm not one of the vlog brothers. I'm not someone with 1 million or so subscribers. I'm not doing so well that I would not worry about it if I privated all the videos in my channel for a week. You know what I mean? Like that, I feel like that would potentially threaten my livelihood. And my livelihood is this. My livelihood is this channel, And it's not that I would starve in those 4 days. Like I would not, but the harm that it would do my channel of having no traffic for those 4 days or 8 days, whatever it would be, is something that I'm not comfortable risking that, since my livelihood, my well-being, my family's well-being depends on me making YouTube videos and getting people to watch them. So even though I am completely sympathetic with the YouTube walkout thing, I think this kind of thing should not be pitched at small creators. I think this should be pitched exclusively at big-time creators, at people with millions of subscribers, because if all of them privated all of their videos and essentially closed their channels for a week and said this is to protest the new terms of service, that might get YouTube to notice and do something. If you targeted sponsors and got sponsors to pull their support, I don't think sponsors would give a shit about this, but if somehow you could convince major sponsors to say, we're not in favor, we're siding with the creators on this, and we're not in favor of these new terms of service, and until you make a change, we're going to pull our support from your platform, like that would make a difference. But people like me, people like you, even if there are a lot of us, I mean, it would have to be so many people that I don't know if it would make much of a difference. And the harm would be felt not by YouTube, but by us. And that would be a shame. So I'm all in favor in principle. I'm all in favor of the idea of, and I'm completely sympathetic, and share the idea of, we should do something. We don't have any power here. We make this site work. We provide the content. We should have a say in this. We should do something about this. But I think the people who are ultimately responsible for doing something about it, other than YouTube itself, which is where the primary responsibility lies, are people who are running the absolutely largest channels, because they have the biggest cushion. They have the greatest ability to absorb the risk. They'll be fine. And they're the ones with the most influence in the largest platforms. They're the ones who should actually be doing something about this. And I haven't looked into it. Maybe some of the bigger channels are interested in it. I have no idea. But yeah, that would be my thought. Is it's a nice idea, but it's something that, if it's going to work, and if you're going to place the risk on the people that are most able to shoulder it, not on the most vulnerable people, that it's something that should be pitched at larger channels much larger than mine. But in theory and in spirit, I'm completely supportive of it. And final patron question. So get your questions ready in the live chat, because we're going to have a good while to hang out here. Final question from a patron, from Joe McClory. You may have noticed many times being questioned about you playing or have played role-playing games. The regulars already know the answer is no, but I was wondering if you have or have had other hobbies that people who have the writing or other creative bugs tend to have. Theater, community or school, karaoke or other forms of open mic or debate, or some form or of performed improv. Not really. I mean, I did some theater stuff in college, but nothing that I still do today. And I worked with an independent film company for a few years, and that was a lot of fun. But I haven't done anything with that for a long time. Mostly because I've been too busy with YouTube stuff to really do anything else. But yeah, I've done stuff like that in the past, off and on, but not really. And as far as like improv or open mic stuff, like the closest thing to improv I've ever done is the Ensign's Log podcast that I do with Jason, where that is improvised, improvised along a plot line, but we don't write the dialogue. We don't write the show. We don't script it line for line. We have a general idea where we're going to go, and when we start recording, before we start recording, Jason will say, okay, here's what this episode is going to be. Here are the beats we need to hit. Here's what we need to accomplish by the end. Here's where I think we're going after this, and then we just go. And we know our characters and we know each other, and we just improv it. And now that we've done it for so long, I think we're pretty good at it. But I had no improv experience as such, not like that, not in terms of like actually performing something. And so no, I've never done anything like that. Never done open mics or karaoke or anything like it. So no, I don't have any interesting hobbies. I'm sorry. I have no. I make YouTube videos, and when I'm not making YouTube videos, I'm watching TV or going for a walk. I live right near a Civil War battlefield, and we love to take nice long walks on the battlefield when the weather is nice. That's about it. That's about it. I'm basically a retired person. I've turned what probably should have been a hobby into a career. So I spend my time making videos, watching TV, and going for walks. So I'm basically a retired person, except for the fact that I work constantly every day. That's it. So hey, let's go to the live chat and see what everybody's talking about. Let me see what you're all saying here. Let me see here. Here's one from Eddie Stone. Oh wait, Eddie Stone says, hi, Steve from the UK. Can you think of a better repeat supporting Trek actor than the incredible Jeffrey Combs? Oh, man, I don't know. He's pretty good. Jeffrey Combs not only is he a good actor, but he's so versatile and prolific. I don't know if I could, because he obviously he played several memorable characters on Deep Space Nine, and then he was also Shran in Enterprise, and I think he was in a Voyager as well, wasn't he? Yeah, I don't know. Jeffrey Combs might be it. That's a pretty good pick. Is the feed out of focus? It is. It does look a little out of focus, doesn't it? Yeah, I wonder why that is. Let me let me check my camera settings here and see what the deal is with that. It does look a little out of focus, doesn't it? Hello? Focus on me, you fuck. That's way out of focus there. That's probably as good as it's going to get. Yeah. Sorry about that. That makes for riveting TV, doesn't it? Interesting thought. Dear Steve, what is your opinion on the Gargoyles cartoon series in relation to TNG actors playing different roles and personalities? Gargoyles is, that's something about Disney Plus I haven't had the chance to enjoy yet, but Gargoyles is on Disney Plus, and I signed up for Disney Plus like the first day. So when I get the chance, I would love to watch some old Gargoyles episodes, because I used to watch that show every day, and the fact that there were so many old TNG actors on it was awesome, because I think the show started right around when TNG ended, right? And like Jonathan Frakes was the main bad guy, and wasn't Marina Sirtis in it? And who else was in it? There were a couple of TNG actors that were in it, either in regular or recurring roles, and it was really cool. It was really, really cool. 255 AD, do you really cheat on your vegan diet on Thanksgiving, or was that just a joke? No, I really do that. Thanksgiving is really a cheat day for me. And it's not something I'm proud of, and I'm technically not vegan. I'm vegetarian, but same principle, I guess, in this case. Not something I'm proud of. Not something I would recommend to everybody. But yeah, I do. Thanksgiving is a cheat day for me. Oh, and Bethany was going to ask about script versus improv for the Ensign's log. So yeah, it's the individual episodes, except for like sort of storyline stuff. Yeah, the actual words that we are speaking are completely improv. We're making it up as we go along. Oh, I got a super chat from Comrade Ibot. Thank you very much. Much love from PDX. Well, thank you very much. Some Random Geek says, shouldn't everyone have the retired life? Yeah, ideally that would be great. Being able to not having to work in order to survive, and being able to pursue your passions, that would be a wonderful thing. Yes, we should create that world. Stephen Edwards, on a scale of 1 to Wrath of Khan, how excited are you for Picard? Pretty goddamn excited. Very close to Wrath of Khan. Very close to Wrath of Khan. I'm super excited for that show. I'm excited for season 3 of Discovery, too. I don't want that to get lost in all the Picard hubbub, but I'm very excited for Picard. I'm really looking forward to it. David Colby says, I mentioned an erotic series earlier, Miracle World, that is caught up in delays. Do you mind if your cameo is in a different book as a put-upon employee at a Wolf 359 amusement park? Yes. That's fine. Yeah, I have no objection to that whatsoever. Josh, the NES Nerd 11 says, I listened to the Ensign's log just recently for the first time. Thought it was great, but I'm curious, why did you guys go by air date instead of production order, which is preferred by many fans and crew? That was Jason's call. I'm not sure exactly why he chose air date over production order. I think maybe because of the convention that an episode isn't canon until it has aired. Like until it's on TV, it hasn't actually happened. So the thing, by that reckoning, the events of Star Trek happened in the order that they were aired, because that's the order in which they became canon. So I mean, it makes sense to me. But I know that production order is preferred by a lot of people. But no, it's a call that Jason made very early in the process. He said we're going to go according to original air date, not according to production order or star date or anything like that. And that made sense to me. So that's why we do that. Chef says, hey, Steve, I was wondering why you turn your like and dislike counts off. I think it's a great idea, but what's the reason behind it? The reason behind it is to just take a toy away from trolls. This doesn't happen to me so much anymore, knock on wood, says the superstitious atheist, apparently. I don't run into this kind of trouble as much as I did a few years ago when I was really being targeted for trolling and harassment and stuff. But a lot of times when someone, like say when a really shitty person makes a response video about you, the people that watch that video will go either to the specific video of yours that is being responded to, or to whatever your most recent video is, and they will just flood it with thumbs down, and you'll have a video that, to the average person watching it has like a 98% thumbs down ratio, and it has nothing to do with the content of the video or the honest opinion of people who watched the video. It's just been weaponized by trolls to make you look like, that you're unpopular or you suck or whatever. So turning off the likes and dislikes takes that toy away. And what it does is that not only does it hide the ratio from the audience, but because it can't be seen publicly, it actually cuts down on the number of trolly thumbs down. Like that, it just doesn't happen as often. It still happens to a certain extent, but when you can't see the ratio and you can't see the bar, it really discourages people from doing that. So it's just about taking a toy away from trolls. And I like taking toys away from trolls. It's all I would do if I could get away with it. Nathaniel Robinson says, thanks for answering my question. Any advice for someone raising a non-believer son in the South? Just teach them to be confident and teach him to be confident in his own beliefs. I would say is probably the best advice I could give you. Teach him to interrogate his own beliefs, to ask himself why he believes what he believes, and that way he will know, he will have confidence in himself and in his beliefs and his opinions. He will be able to defend them if necessary. And he will have a better understanding of why he doesn't believe what other people believe. And it'll give him more confidence, and he'll be less prone to be unduly influenced by other people. You wouldn't want to raise someone who doesn't care at all what other people think, but you also wouldn't want to raise someone who just blows, like a flag in the wind according to whatever any people around him are saying. So I would say, just try to encourage him to be confident into his beliefs, and not confident in terms of arrogance or being dogmatic about his own beliefs, but to ask himself questions about why he thinks the things he thinks and come up with good answers, so he has a basis for that confidence. Oh, Summer Geek says, how would you protest YouTube's new terms of service if you can't join the YouTube walkout? I honestly think the best thing someone like me or you or people who are relatively at our level of things can do is to talk about it. And look, if you can afford to join the walkout or you're willing to take the risk, then absolutely go for it. But if not, raising awareness, drawing attention to the problem is probably the best we can do. And yes, Michael Dorn was in Gargoyles as well. Yeah, and Brent Spartan. Yeah, a lot of people are on Gargoyles. Joe McClory. Yeah, late seating is entirely improvised. Yeah, we don't script that at all. Which I think. Well, actually, here's the thing. About a year ago, I did start scripting my review when we get through the plot summary and we're in sort of the last phase of the show, and we're going back and forth about Steve, what did you think about whatever. I started scripting that for myself about a year ago because I thought that I rambled too much and I repeated myself too much. So I started scripting my bits, and I follow that script. I don't follow it word for word. I follow it very loosely, while I'm doing my review. And I still think I'm way too windy and repetitive. So it didn't really solve that problem. But yeah, other than that, for the most part, it's completely unscripted. Phoenix Espresso, have you heard anything about the controversy surrounding the UK Atheist Convention organizer Lance Gregorchuk? David Worley, Rachel Oates, and Shannon Q have all done videos. No, I'm not familiar with any of that. I haven't. I might be kind of familiar with it faintly, but I can't think of it right now. And I haven't watched any of those videos. Dr. Marmalade, what about vegetarian pot pie as a favorite pie? Everyone always goes for a sweet pie, but not savory pie. A good vegetarian pot pie would definitely be, I love pot pie, and a good vegetarian pot pie is just delicious. So yes, but you're right. I did automatically default to sweet pie, didn't I? Jeff C., what should we do to make our lives better, like Star Trek? I mean, find something that you love, that gives you joy, that gives you pleasure, that gives your life meaning, and try to do it as often as possible. Phoenix Espresso says, what's your opinion on Essence of Thought calling Rationality Rules a violent transphobe and characterizing him as calling for violence against trans people? As far as I know, Rationality Rules has never explicitly called for violence against trans people, but the problem is violence against trans people, disenfranchising of trans people, dehumanizing and seeing trans people as less than cis people is the unavoidable consequence of the kind of views that Rationality Rules has espoused in his videos. So I don't think it's objectionable or unfair or out of line for him to be called out on that, and for the potentially dire consequences of proliferating those views to be pointed out to him. Like, has he explicitly called for violence? No. But is violence against trans people one of the results of those kinds of attitudes becoming prevalent in culture? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not hypothetical. That's a fact. Like, trans people face higher levels of violence than cis people do. And part of the reason is that a lot of cis people see trans people as like it's okay to be violent. It's okay to abuse them. It's okay to victimize them, to treat them in ways that you would not treat other people. And that is in part a result of attitudes of anti-trans, of transphobic attitudes like those proliferated by people like Rationality Rules. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to shush Essence of Thought when they say those sorts of things. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, hold on, he hasn't explicitly called for violence. I'm not stepping in on that, because I think Rationality Rules is a scumbag. And I think he's said a lot of transphobic shit, and to my knowledge has never sufficiently owned up to it and apologized for it and made it right. So fuck him. John Brockman, should we sabotage oil pipelines? Absolutely not. Sean Hartley, hey Steve, I commented on a Facepalm 5 video that you used a snippet of footage from The Sun. Terrible right-wing overinflators that hate good people. Please tell me you don't use them anymore. I don't think I have since you left that comment. I've tried to be mindful of that. I can't swear to it, but I don't think I have. Joe Thunder, would you want a second season of Picard to cover a Borg war like in the novels? I mean, I wouldn't automatically vote against it just for the sake of it, but I would. I mean, I think you could probably come up with a better concept for another season than a Borg war. I mean, the thing is, like Picard, with Picard, we've already done the Borg. We've done 2 big Borg stories with Captain Picard. We did Best of Both Worlds, where he was assimilated, and we did First Contact. Those are. I feel like Picard and the Borg is well-trodden ground at this point. If we're going to do a season 2 of Picard, we're going to bring Patrick Stewart back again. I would hope we can do something other than Picard versus Borg again. Especially, it looks like there's going to be some Borg shit in season 1 of Picard too. So it feels like we're going to have picked that pretty clean. Oh, Zio returns. Did you do a super chat? I'm sorry, I must have missed that. I apologize for missing that. Let me scroll up and see if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Hi from an Australian Star Trek fan. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's really cool. And I appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. Greg Frost says, Steve, I'd love you to pitch a new Star Trek series to Brian Fuller and become a showrunner. Thanks so much for your videos, Greg from the UK. Yeah, I mean, like I've said before, I don't have I have little bits and pieces of things I would love to see done or love to do in a Star Trek show, but I don't have like any specific idea. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have like a Star Trek concept that I'm just waiting to do. So, but yeah, that would be great. And thank you for the compliment. Emperor Sieghart, why does the former skeptosphere and their fan base still continue to harass you years after that white privilege circle jerk imploded after the election of Lord Dampnut? I mean, I guess maybe they still harass me. I mean, I guess they do, but it's not. I don't notice it as much because it's not nearly to the level that it was. And I guess by this time I've blocked a lot of people, so not as much of it gets through to me. And two, I feel like I've demonstrated that it. I feel like I've demonstrated that it really doesn't matter to me what they do. Like they're not going to stop me. Like they can make all the whiny, pissy videos about me that they want. I don't care. I'm not going to play with them. I'm not going to acknowledge them, and I'm not going to stop doing videos that I want to do and talking about things that I want to talk about. Like I don't care about them. They don't scare me, and they don't affect my content. So maybe some of them have given up. But I mean, if they are still angry about me, good. They can die mad about it. Jeff C., I like truth, Steve. You should leave the numbers up. Well, I'm not gonna. You mean the like-dislike ratio? I'm not gonna. So yeah, I hope that you factor that into your decision as to whether or not you continue to watch my videos. I'm gonna leave the likes, dislikes hidden. Mr. Cool Breeze 69, what are your thoughts on Romulan and Klingon cloaking tech between the timelines of Enterprise, TOS, TNG, First Contact movie, and the new Star Trek and the new STD series? How was it explained? You mean like Romulans and Klingons sharing technology, that sort of thing? I don't know. Was it ever really explained? I feel like that's just one of those Star Trek things. It's one of those things that it was introduced in the original series so they could save money on models. So they could say, "Oh, look, it's the Romulans, but they're using Klingon ships," right? They just that was just a budget thing, and it became canon because it was in the show. But then they kind of ignored it. Then in subsequent shows, they never really got back to that, and in fact, they started to portray Klingons and Romulans as blood enemies because at some point in between TOS and TNG, the Romulans had betrayed the Klingons and earned their everlasting enmity. So, I mean, I don't know if it ever was explained. It's just one of those Star Trek things. And it really doesn't bother me all that much. Robert Mills, would you ever have more human characters in Steve and Stuffy? Also, would you do a riff on your videos as the Steve from Steve and Stuffy? That's kind of a good idea. That's kind of a funny idea to do like a riff on my videos as me from Steve and Stuffy. Yeah, I would have human characters in it if I had access to more human actors. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's no... I don't have like any objection to having other human characters. I would do that, sure. Joe McClory, favorite non-Trek sci-fi. I think I've said before, it's probably Star Wars. Like my tastes are very mundane and middle of the road. If it's not Star Trek, it's probably Star Wars. Babylon 5 is good too, but I haven't seen, I watched Babylon 5 when it was originally airing, and I haven't gone back to it since. So, I mean, I remember really liking it, but I haven't gone back to it, whereas I have gone back to Star Wars over and over again. Marty Mestamaker, excited for the 4th season of The Expanse. Have you checked it out? No, I have not. I've never seen The Expanse. Michael Olson, when will the new Whirlpool be released? The Whirlpool is coming back in January. The way it works is Steve Stuffy is on intermittently throughout the first, half of the year or so. And then starting in September, Steve and Stuffy runs every week until the end of the year. So Steve and Stuffy will end at the end of this year, and then we'll be on hiatus until sometime next year. And in January, starting the first week of January, the Whirlpool will come back and we'll be on the Whirlpool. And the Whirlpool next year will run the same as it did this year, which is there will be 12 episodes of the Whirlpool, and then there will be a 4-week break where I'll do some Steve and Stuffy, and then the Whirlpool will come back for 12 more weeks. So there will be 24 total Whirlpool episodes in 2 continuous 12-week blocks. And the first block starts first week of January. So there you go. Here's a super chat from Sean Hartley. Thank you, Sean. I know you enjoyed Disco, and I agree. Excellent series. Looking forward to season 3. Do you think it will stay in the future? Favorite Disco character? Oh, so many good Disco questions. Yeah, I think it will stay in the far future. I think that's a really bold and exciting move. No other Star Trek show has ever done that, has ever shaken up its status quo so incredibly, where they basically completely changed the setting. That's really cool and really exciting and really gutsy. And I'm really looking forward to season 3. And favorite Discovery character? It's hard not to say Saru. Like, I love Saru. I love Saru so much. I love Doug Jones as an actor. I love Saru's character. I love his character design. I really love Tilly too, though. Like, I love Tilly, but I think if I had to pick, it would be Saru. Gabby Merida, have you been following anything involving the fracturing of the left-wing parties in Spain to the benefit of a new neo-fascist, violently pro-Franco party? It's scarily similar to the U.S. lately. No, I haven't been following that. I apologize. Joe McClory, what are your feelings on quiche? Is it egg pie? Sure, why not? JP's Bisson. Steve, I recently saw a Theory of Borg Origins episode out there on the YouTubes saying that they go back as far as an episode of TOS Operation Annihilate, wondering if you believe it is spot on. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the video, so I don't know how it ties it in, but I mean, obviously the Borg, if the Borg does have an origin in Operation Annihilate, then that would have to be some kind of a fan canon sort of thing, like a head canon retcon type of thing, because obviously the Borg were not created until the second season of TNG, and anything that is made to make them look like they had an origin as early as Operation Annihilate would be a retcon, which would be fine, but you know, that's what it would be. David Colby, Pitch, a perfectly ordinary TV show that keeps going for 3 episodes before one ends with a minor character saying pause, end program, and it's Star Trek. I would watch it. John Brockman says, Steve, if you got a new show, who would you want to play the captain? Has to be a new captain. See, this is one of the few hypothetical questions about what would your Star Trek show be that I have an immediate answer for. And the answer is, it would be, the captain will be played by Henry Simmons. And Henry Simmons, for those of you who don't know, he plays Mac on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And before that, his big role was he was Detective Baldwin Jones on NYPD Blue. Fantastic actor. And I would want to do a Star Trek show just to have that dude play the captain. So, yeah, Henry Simmons would be my Star Trek captain for sure. Hey, from Rex Gray. Hey, Steve, what do you think about the recent take on Khan in the Kelvin movies? I thought it was fine. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a terrific actor, and it was fun to see him in a Star Trek movie and hamming it up as like an over-the-top villain. I thought he was a fine Khan, but you know, it was a whitewashing thing. It had the same problem that a lot of villains have, unfortunately, which is Khan originally was supposedly a person of color, you know, and ideally would be played by someone of Indian descent or from that region of the world. And he was played by Ricardo Montalban. And in Star Trek Into Darkness, he was played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is as white as you can get. But he was still Khan, you know. So that was a problem, and in the movie that's never explained. That is explained in one of the comics leading up to it, which are sort of pseudo canon to those movies, but it's never explained on screen. So that's a problem. But other than that, if you can get past that, I thought he was a fine Khan. And I thought that was a good movie. I'm one of the minority of people who still think Star Trek Into Darkness is a pretty good movie, despite its many problems and despite how annoying the reversals get, where they're doing Wrath of Khan, but they're flipping it around and doing a different version of it, and that gets a little cutesy and a little irritating after a certain point. But in general, I still think that's a strong movie, and I think Cumber Khan is okay. I still prefer the original, but I think he's okay. Some random geek question: should the left welcome in June /shoe on head? Some leftists are defending June on Twitter. How do you feel about that? I think they're dipshits, and I think they're suckers, and I think that she's a contemptible piece of garbage, and no, they should not welcome her. They should be driving her further out than she is. She's an abusive, bigoted piece of garbage, and people defending her or making excuses for her, or to call back to an earlier question from a patron, to try and turn her. Guys, she's not worth it. Like, even if you could somehow turn her and make her into one of us, is she really worth the effort that it's been years. People have been giving her room and making excuses for her and trying to urge people to, to not be, to be nice to her and to give her the benefit of the doubt. And, oh, she's seen the error of her ways. How many times have we been through this? And how many times has she said something that made people think, oh, maybe she's becoming a good person, and then like the next day she says something else and you're like, oh shit, I forgot, she's the worst. It's a complete waste of fucking time. Anybody who thinks that that being her friend and trying to turn her and make her into something other than like a right-wing pandering, neo-Nazi pandering, alt-right, white supremacist, transphobic piece of shit is wasting their time. Because that's who she is. That's the audience that she has cultivated. That's obviously the audience that she wants, because she's scared to death to say or do anything that will alienate any of them. So to hell with her. It's a waste of time. She's a bad person. Like, what does it... Like, what else does she have to say or do? How many more harassment campaigns against people on Twitter and YouTube does she have to instigate or participate in? How many shitty, bigoted things does she have to say? How many alt-right, white supremacist assholes and professional trolls and shitlords does she have to befriend and make a big show of supporting and refusing to turn her back on before people just get the point that she's a bad fucking person? And she's not worth whatever charity they are continuing to extend to her. So no, I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a waste of time. And I think people who are trying to bring her over or make excuses for her are at best, they are wasting their fucking time. And at worst, they are gullible fools if they honestly believe that they are accomplishing a goddamn thing by trying to be nice and woo June over to the progressive side. She's a piece of garbage. And even if she did all of a sudden join our side, I, for one, would never trust her to begin with. I would never be able to fully trust her because she's look, I don't know how many ways I can say it. She's a shitty person. It's obvious she's a shitty person. She's demonstrated for years that she's a shitty fucking person. Treating her as anything else is a waste of time. But thank you for the question. And I suspect the prompt, just something about, I'm pretty sure we're on the same page on this. Zachary Harlow, I'm a huge fan of yours and just wanted to say I love your vids and video. Well, thank you very much, Zachary. I really appreciate that. K.A.E. Eberhardt, refusing to shop at a store based on the owner's politics versus shopping there and supporting the local workforce and economy. I mean, it had better be pretty goddamn important to the local economy if I'm still going to shop there. Like, for me, it would be about if the owner's politics are that bad. Like, if the owner is like a Trump supporter or is known to be anti-worker, anti-immigrant, something like that, and I am able to not patronize their establishment, then I'm gonna do that. Like, they would have to be super important to the local economy for me to feel so bad that I would continue to support them even if they were like that. Super chat from John Gingers. Preach it, Steve. Thank you, John, and thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Red Spiral Ray. What do you believe is the absolute best episode of Star Trek ever made? Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Visitor. That is my favorite episode of Star Trek ever. I think it's the best episode of Star Trek ever. I think it's one of the most beautiful, human, heartbreaking things that Star Trek has ever made. And that's easily my favorite. Like, I don't even know what number 2 would be. I know that, I mean, Star Trek has produced so many wonderful episodes and films, and there's so much great Star Trek. But for me, The Visitor is so far out ahead of everything else. It's not even a contest. Josh the NES nerd, on the spot, could you make an argument for why Spock's brain is secretly great? It's actually a stealth comedy. We're not supposed to take it seriously. It's actually a brilliant subversion and parody, in fact, of Star Trek stories. That's why it's so goofy and silly and hinges on such outrageous coincidences and contrivances and has such just outlandishly goofy stuff like Spock walking around like a zombie with like a rope, like a computer thing on his head because his brain has been taken out. And it ends on such a corny note with Spock, going off on one of his verbose tangents, telling a story that nobody's interested in. It's actually a spoof of Star Trek. That's why it's secretly great, because you're not supposed to take it seriously. You're supposed to laugh at it. I don't really believe that, but if you want to make a case for why it's secretly great, there you go. Gabby Merida, do you think there is a place for conservatives who like Star Trek and leave their personal politics aside, simply enjoying it as a work of fiction and not trying to overlay their own values on it? Sure. I mean, that's between them and Star Trek. I mean, I'm still not interested in hearing from them unless they just, when I find out that you are like a Trump supporter, when I find out that you are a member of the Republican Party, that influences my opinion of you. That tells me something about you as a human being that I don't like, that I think does you very little credit, that I think says something very unflattering and very troubling about you. So for me personally, I don't care what you think, and I don't care what you do. Just leave me out of it. But yeah, I mean, people can like Star Trek for whatever reasons they like it. I'm not trying to gatekeep and say that, you're not really a Star Trek fan unless XYZ. If you like Star Trek, you like Star Trek and you're a Star Trek fan. And that's it. That's the only requirement. It's not for me to decide. But for people who watch my videos, for people who are in my audience, if you're a conservative, I'm sorry, you're not welcome. If you think it's more important for rich people to keep their money than it is for cancer patients to live, then I don't want you in my audience. You're not welcome here. It's as simple as that. But if you enjoy Star Trek, enjoy it for whatever reason you do. Bethany Turner. Now I wish I lived nearby so I could guest on Steve and Stuffy. Yeah, that would be amazing. And yes, I know I should rewatch Babylon 5. I haven't. And Some Random Geek. No, I have not watched Legion either. So tell Leto I'm very sorry. Yeah, Captain Killy, exactly. Captain Killy was awesome. And again, as I usually say, I mean, I apologize if I miss anybody's question. I'm scrolling through the chat and trying to catch everyone, but if I miss your question, it's nothing personal. I deeply apologize. Philip K, least favorite disco character. Oh man, that's a good one. Least favorite disco character. Probably Tyler. Ash Tyler is probably my least favorite. Who would be your ideal first officer? Riker is mine or Sisko? Yeah, Riker. My ideal first officer would be Riker, yeah. What do you think? I have a feeling Worley likes his hot dog as a relish sandwich. That's funny. Emperor Seagard, not sure if you're a fan of Stargate, but who would your pick be to play O'Neill in the remake? Yeah, I haven't watched Stargate. I've maybe seen part of an episode of the show, and I don't think I've ever even seen the movie, so I'm not the person to ask on that. Nathaniel Robinson, any chance for a confrontation between Worley and future Steve? Ooh, maybe. No plans at the moment, but you never say never. John Brockman, who's the kinkiest Star Trek captain? After Janeway. She's rougher than Warren. Kinkiest Star Trek captain? Who would be the kinkiest Star? Well. I mean, man, I can't see. This isn't now. I'm gonna have to look something up here real quick because I'm completely blanking on. Lorca. How could I have forgotten Lorca's name? You just witnessed it. You just witnessed it. I had to Google the name of the captain from Star Trek Discovery Season 1. I forgot about Gabriel Lorca. Lorca's got to be the kinkiest. Can't believe I forgot Lorca. Can you believe that? Some Random Geek. No, I have not read The Conquest of Bread. 255 AD, if Millicent was a real person, would you give a fuck about her? If she was a human, she'd be a self-hating mixed-race racist. Possibly not. Possibly not. There are aspects of Millicent's personality and her attitudes that if you transfer them to a human being, I think for most of us, they would be instantly unpalatable, which is one reason why it's good that she's a dog. She's a cute little stuffed husky. So then it makes it easier to do things with her that you couldn't necessarily do with a human character. Biking Chad, hey Steve, a little late here, but have you thought about what Star Trek would look like through Tim Burton's dark filter? Ooh. Oh, and then some random geek said goth Star Trek. Yeah, that's a good one. Tim Burton Star Trek would be interesting. I don't know if it would necessarily be awesome, but it would be very interesting. If you had to, Gabby Marita, if you had to pitch a Star Trek show set in an already established era, but completely disconnected from that era's characters and heroship, which era would you most enjoy? Enterprise, TOS, or TNG DS9? I would TOS, but TOS movie era. I would love to do a show set during the era of the original series movies. That's one of my, aesthetically, it's my favorite. The uniforms are my favorite. I think, and there's enough of it unexplored. Like there's enough time there where we haven't been filled in on everything that happened, that I think you could do a prequel, but still have enough room to play without having to worry about not getting anything wrong or contradicting anything. So I would do it. I would set it sometime during the TOS movie era, which is a pretty broad era because those movies cover a lot of time, but sometime in there is where I would love to do it. Emperor Seaguard says, I don't have another question. I just want to reiterate that Shoeonhead is a scumbag liar, and anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool. Yeah, please. Like, how many times do we have to? It's like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football at this point. You know, just stop kicking the foot. Stop trying to kick the football, Charlie Brown. You're never going to get to kick the fucking football. Mr. Coolbreeze69, hey Steve, do you think that Quentin T's version of Star Trek will ever be made, and what canon will it follow? Apparently it would be Kelvin timeline. That's what I've read. I don't know, but apparently it would be Kelvin timeline. And I don't know if it will be made or not. See, this is the thing. I haven't talked about this yet in a video, but apparently Star Trek 4 is back on. The fourth Kelvin movie is back in production now. They're going to do it again. The guy who has done the Fargo TV show is going to do it. So apparently Pine and Quinto and Urban and the rest of the cast are back on board. So I mean, with that movie happening, apparently once again, Tarantino's version, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's looking less likely, but I wouldn't say absolutely not. I mean, it's still possible. And I would totally see it if it did ever see the light of day. But if they're going to do a fourth Kelvin film, maybe they're going to focus on that, not so much on the Tarantino. I don't know. Red Spiral Ray, hey Steve, have they ever shown a mirror universe version of Khan? I wonder if he's the face to Kirk's heel in their feud. I mean, that would make sense for the rules of the mirror universe, I suppose. No, never been shown. At least, I mean, I can't vouch for if there's ever been a version of him in one of the comics or the novels. I don't know, possibly, but and I never in a canon production. 255 AD question. I'm going to vote Labor next month because I know I have to try. Have you ever felt that way about an election? I know we'll lose, but I have to vote anyway. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's always important to vote, even if your side is very unlikely to win. Yeah, I still think it's important to vote. You don't vote because you think your side is going to win. You vote because you think the person you're voting for should win or has to win. Yeah. Sean Hartley, Steve, would you rather time travel or reality travel? Your choice of past or future, or into an alternate reality Earth? I think alternate reality sounds more interesting. Both are very compelling, but alternate reality, I don't know. There's something about, if this thing happened different, how would reality be as a result of that? Like that's endlessly fascinating. Hey, Alice Ashton, happy holidays. I wonder if you could tell us how you really feel about Shoeonhead. Don't hold back this time. Let me tell you something. Just see that little bar at the bottom of the video? Just seek it back a few minutes and you'll see how I really feel. I have nothing but contempt for her. I have absolutely bottomless contempt for her. It's the opposite of how I feel about you, Alice, because I think you're just the best. The visitor. Tony Todd is amazing. Tony Todd is amazing. Tony Todd liked one of my tweets one time, and I think I was like happy about that for about 8 years. John Brockman says, would Star Trek be improved if they got rid of the bullshit military trappings? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it does. The thing about it is, like, they say, Starfleet is not a military organization, and that's nice that they say that, but it still kind of is. It's hard to imagine the show without it. But I would be interested to see. I mean, Deep Space Nine moved somewhat in that direction, where, I mean, many of the characters were still in Starfleet. But there was also a large portion of the cast, especially the recurring cast, that were not in Starfleet, and in some cases were even sort of skeptical or opposed to Starfleet. So, I mean, you can do Star Trek without making it, without setting it aboard a quasi-military vessel. It's just a question of how. But yeah, I don't know if maybe it would improve it, maybe it wouldn't. I think it would really depend on the show. MJ Draw says, there's another YouTuber out there that likes to review Star Trek stuff, and he strikes me as very misogynistic. I guess that's why I don't watch his videos, and I do watch Steve. Well, thank you. I'm glad you watch my videos. Really? Misogynists in the Star Trek fan community? On YouTube? I'm just stunned by that. Really? Are you sure? John Ginger, Steve, do you grow a beard because of Riker? That's the reason I started growing one years ago. Well, yeah, I saw that when Riker grew a beard, he as a character improved, and the show he was on improved. I wanted to improve as a human being, so I grew a beard. Exactly. It's a cross between emulating Riker and emulating my father, because my father had a beard for many years as well. So it's both of those. And I'm sure Dad would love to hear that. Yes, it's partially because I want to be like you, but it's also because I want to be like this guy on a Star Trek show. He used to watch Star Trek TNG. I don't think he would be that upset about it. Some random geek says, how do you feel about moderates and centrists? We know how you feel about conservatives, but about middle ground people? I mean, I don't think they're as big of a problem as conservatives, but it's just like Martin Luther King singled out the white moderate in letters from a Birmingham jail. It was, right, when he said, I'm deeply disappointed in the white moderate. He didn't say the white right winger. He didn't say the white supremacist. He said the white moderate, because often they are the ones who are standing in the way of progress, not by explicitly opposing it, but by just tut-tutting everybody and saying, oh, let's all calm down here. And that's not all. Moderation is good, but good in the right circumstance. The times don't always call for moderation. Sometimes they call for energetic progress. So there are times when moderates and centrists are impediments to what needs to happen, and then they really get on my fucking nerves. John Brockman, have you watched Love, Sex, and Robots? It's an After Dark Twilight Zone. No, I have not. Most dangerous Star Trek non-weapons tech. Well, obviously, I think it's the transporter, or perhaps the holodeck, or as it is known to myself and Jason, the murder box. Have you had a chance to check out The Expanse yet? No, I have not. And there's Leto. I finally caught up to the part in the chat where Leto showed up. Hello, my dear. Glad you could be here. John Brockman says, Millicent is a Rule 63 furry Nick Fuentes. Okay. Sure. Joe Thunder, after Enterprise was canceled in 2005, what sci-fi TV shows did you watch to fill the void? I think I watched Smallville for a few years after that. I'm not sure what else I watched. I can't really remember. Yes, Bethany, thank you. The TOS movies cover 2272 to 2293. So that's a good chunk of time to explore for a show. Yes, Wellington, Star Trek should make a movie about saving the whales. God damn it. I can't believe that hasn't been done yet. Catherick, have you read Permanent Record from Snowden? No. Cast Iron Chaos, have you any comments on Scorsese's The Irishman, which premiered on Netflix 2 2 years ago? No, I don't think 2 years ago. What, 2 days ago maybe? No, I'm going to watch The Irishman tonight, actually. As soon as I'm done with this live stream, which will be very soon because I'm past the time that I usually wrap this up. I'm going to try to breeze through the rest of the live chat real quick and answer as many more questions as I can. And then I'm going to sit down and watch The Irishman. So I haven't watched it yet. I tell you what, I saw Knives Out today. Knives Out was really good. I think I'm about midway through writing a review of it. Maybe next week I'm going to release my review of Knives Out. It was fantastic. But I'm going to watch The Irishman tonight, so I'll let you know after I watch it. Are you going to review, Matt M., are you going to review the second season of Short Treks? Yeah, probably. Letoano, Tarantino is a C word. Yeah. Yes, I think you're right about that. Yes. Yes, 2 days ago. David Colby says, wrong, it's a tractor beam. It's not, the most dangerous tech is a tractor beam, not the transporter or the holodeck, because it can drag asteroids into planets and kill everyone. Yeah, okay, you're right. Gabby Meredith, for political commentary, do you have or have you ever watched either The Young Turks or Sam Seder? A little bit of each. I'm not like a regular viewer of either, but a little bit of each. Yeah, here and there. Yes, I will mention the charity links, some random geek, I promise. Yes, Knives Out was very good. I've only Josh the NES nerd says I've only seen one of Scorsese's movies, Taxi Driver. I'm slowly working my way through what is considered his best. Yeah, Taxi Driver is great. Scorsese's filmography is really solid. Scorsese is a really, really fantastic filmmaker, and hopefully when you work your way through more of his stuff, you'll enjoy it. John Brockman, does Joe Rogan count as comedy? Does it have to be funny in order to be comedy? Because if not, then he doesn't. Tom McDonald, do you have any suggestions for how I can overcome my vicious racism and cultural insensitivity? Don't listen to those. Don't listen to 1960s novelty songs anymore, you monster. No, not really. You're probably okay. I mean, I'm as a fellow white person, it's not really for me to be drawing the lines and setting the boundaries and standards anyway. So it's probably dangerous for me to be like, "Here, Tom, here's what you need to do," because what the fuck do I know? Anyway, yeah. So I hope there's no hard feelings. Okay. Before I go, and I'm going to turn away from the chat now. So thank you all so very much for the questions and for paying attention. So one more from some random geek. Here we go. Isn't Thanksgiving a holiday of genocide? Yeah, it pretty much is. At best, it's a holiday of whitewashing genocide or romanticizing, putting a happy face on the mass murder and forced relocation of Native people. So yeah, it kind of is. All right. I hate to do this, but I'm going to turn away from the live chat now and I'm going to wrap up the show. So thank you all so much for all of the questions and the comments and everything and for being here and watching this. Please check out the charity links in the description of this video. Unfortunately, many of our friends, a few of whom have set up GoFundMes and Kickstarters and just fundraising, crowdfunding pages that I have linked in the description. They're in financial difficulty and need some help, and it's terrible that they have been pushed into this situation. But they need a hand, and if you can possibly help out, I know it's the holidays, and I know a lot of us are strapped for various reasons. But if you have a few spare dollars and you want to help somebody out, the charity links are in the description of the video. Please check those out. And if you can't contribute monetarily, please consider sharing them on your social media and spreading the word a little bit, because every little bit helps. And I know they would appreciate it. And so would I. And also, if you enjoy my work, here's my Patreon link. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to check out my Patreon page. As was mentioned earlier when we were talking about the YouTube walkout, this YouTube channel is my job. I support my family on my YouTube channel. I pay my bills with my YouTube channel. And I could not make these videos or do what I do without my Patreon patrons first and foremost. So if you go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and you want to support my work, you can become a patron. And it starts at $1 a month. And those really add up and help out tremendously. $5 a month, and you get a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5 and Trek Actually. Any amount, you get to ask questions early for Ask Away. You can submit questions a few days before the Ask Away live stream goes live. I put up a special post on my Patreon feed that only patrons can see, and you can leave a comment and post your question there. And I will answer all of the patron questions on the live stream, just like I did today, very first thing before I start paying attention to the live chat. So you can get your question answered, guaranteed, if you're a Patreon patron and you get it in before the show starts on that post. So that's the Patreon page. I also am the co-host of a couple of podcasts in the Let Me Listen podcast family, Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where we take a look at classic films and decide whether or not they deserve their reputation, be that reputation good or bad, and the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek-themed comedy podcast where we play low-ranking officers aboard a certain famous Federation starship as it embarks on a certain legendary 5-year mission. Each of our episodes takes place roughly within the same time frame as a classic Star Trek episode, and it's just been so much fun to do, and it's been so gratifying and fulfilling to know that so many of you are listening to it and enjoying it as well. So you can listen to the Ensign's Log and Late Seating at letmelistenpodcasts.com on SoundCloud. You can subscribe via RSS using your favorite podcast app, and the links to all of that are in the description of this video as well. So thank you for listening to our podcasts, because Jason and I really work, well, Jason works hard on them, and I do a certain amount of work on them. And we really love them, and we really appreciate you listening. So that's it for the show. Thank you all once again for watching. Thank you all for interacting and asking questions. It was tons of fun as usual. Special announcement about the next episode of Ask Away, which will be in 2 weeks as usual. The next Ask Away will be the 50th episode. Hard to believe I've been doing these live streams. This will be the 50th one next time. So for the 50th episode, because it's kind of a milestone, if you are a patron and you want to ask a question ahead of time, or if you're in the live chat and you're here as I'm doing it and you want to ask a question in the live chat, either way, you can ask a question of me about anything like you always do and just treat it like a regular episode and I'll answer all the questions. Or I will also be joined during the next Ask Away for the 50th episode by Stuffy and Toby Benson and Jack McPherson and Millicent and Hans Krieger and Prospector Jones and Squirrel and Wilhelmina, the entire regular cast of Steven Stuffy, and of course myself and the Steven Stuffy gang. We will be in the live stream together, and we will answer your questions for anybody who has questions. So if you have a question for Stuffy, you can ask it, and Stuffy will answer your question live on the air. If you have a question for Toby Benson, for Jack, for Wilhelmina, for Millicent, for Squirrel, for Prospector, for Hans, whoever, ask your question, and they will answer you during the show. They won't be here in the room with me. They'll be in their own little rooms on their webcams and stuff, but they'll all be on the stream with me, and you'll be able to interact with them live on Ask Away number 50. So that'll be a lot of fun. And if you're a patron and you have questions for them, look in a couple of weeks for the post, and there'll be a note about it, a reminder about it as well, or just show up live for the live stream on the next episode and ask your question in the live chat and ask the Stuffy gang whatever you want to know, and they will answer to the best of their ability. So that'll be a lot of fun. I've wanted to do that for a while. I decided I'll save it for episode 50 because that's kind of a fun milestone. So there you go. Question me, question the Stuffy gang. That's the next episode. So look forward to that. I know I am. It'll be so much fun and so relaxing and easy to do. That's it, everybody. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Those of you who celebrated it, hope you have good holidays until I talk to you again. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.